Tonight, hope begins to fade as the search for a missing 5-year-old boy enters its third week. Also, well below average. A new national report shows Saskatchewan is not keeping up when it comes to surgeries. Plus,
I announced my retirement.
After 23 seasons in the NHL, a legendary pro from Saskatchewan is calling it a career.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, May the 10th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The Saskatchewan government says reducing surgical wait times is a priority, but it won't be easy. A new report shows wait times for knee and hip replacement surgeries in Saskatchewan were the worst in the country in the first 18 months of the pandemic. Yasmin Regina has the details.
62-year-old Brenda Andrews loves hiking, biking, and skiing, but since January of last year, she can barely walk. Andrews has severe arthritis in both knees.
I was in a lot of pain, and that's when I got put on the wait list.
A wait list for knee replacement surgery. 15 months later, she's still waiting. Andrews says she has spent thousands of dollars on physiotherapy and medication and lives in pain every day.
I was told to walk and bike that knees-like motion, but boy, there are times it's tooth gritting to make sure to do that activity.
According to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, the wait time for knee or hip replacements should be within 6 months. But from April 2020 to September 2021, only 30% of Saskatchewan patients waiting for a new knee had the surgery within that time frame. And for hip replacements, 43% of people had the surgery within 6 months, the worst record in Canada. Today, the official opposition had pointed words for the health minister, noting this report doesn't use data from the fourth wave of COVID, which devastated Saskatchewan's health system.
By any measure that matters, this minister was already, before the pandemic, the worst health minister in the entire country.
The surgical wait list has grown during the pandemic, with COVID-19 taking up much needed resources. Today, there are still between 34 and 35,000 people waiting for surgery. But the health minister says overall surgical capacity is improving, operating at nearly 100% capacity, with some communities even exceeding their scheduled surgeries.
We're only 200 surgeries away from meeting our 2019 targets, Mr. Speaker, but we're on track to be able to meet those targets and exceed them to be able to get our surgical capacity up to 97,000.
For Brenda Andrews, she's been told by doctors it'll be at least 9 more months until she can get her surgery. Yasmin Regina, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The City of Regina is now accepting grant applications for harm reduction projects in the Queen City. $500,000 is up for grabs to be eligible for funding, and an organization must be a registered nonprofit. The 4 funding priorities include overdose prevention, safe and accessible spaces, safe and inclusive communities, and strengthened support and connections. The deadline to apply is June 17th, and funds will be distributed in September. Education workers showed up at the legislature today to voice concerns about staffing cuts. Some school divisions in Saskatchewan have already warned that budget shortfalls will require them to cut teaching positions. Alexander Kwan has more.
It was a quiet but passionate protest as education workers from 8 school divisions gathered at the provincial legislature in Regina on Tuesday. They want the province to boost education funding even more.
The government's failure to fund growth is essentially a cut to education.
Rob Westfield is a building operator with the Saskatoon Public School Division. He says this year's budget increase isn't enough to cover inflation and other operating cost increases.
We show up every day for the students of Saskatchewan, and we are here today calling on the Saskatchewan government to do the same.
Some school divisions have already delivered letters to parents warning that cuts are coming. The Chinook School Division says that it will need to slash 20 teaching positions and cut hours from educational assistants. One of those who will be affected spoke out on Tuesday.
My work day is specifically designed around the students that I work with. Is their school day also going to end 30 minutes earlier every day? Are they all of a sudden not going to need me the first 30 minutes of each day?
The education minister says the province is adding educational assistants.
449 more EAs employed in the last 5 years. And Mr. Speaker, we are going to add 200 to that with this new $7 million fund, Mr. Speaker, that will be directed to school divisions to hire more EAs for the classroom.
But the opposition argues the money won't stretch far enough.
Since 2016, school division operating funding, it has increased 5.1%. But in that same time period, the Canadian Price Index is up 14.5%. So what's the impact on school divisions? Cutting teachers, cutting EAs, squeezed fuel costs, and now warning families of more cuts and more reductions to come.
For now, the province's school divisions are left figuring out how to stretch their budgets to cover rising costs. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
In related news, the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation will have a new president next year. Patrick Mays will not be seeking re-election at the end of the month. He's been the president since 2015. He's moving into a new role with the STF in July. A new plaque was unveiled at the Saskatchewan Legislative Building this morning, and it's the first one of its kind in a legislative building in Canada. This is the Rick Hansen Accessibility Foundation certification plaque. It shows that Saskatchewan's legislative building is accessible to all visitors, including individuals living with disabilities. Representatives from Spinal Cord Injury Saskatchewan helped assess the building to make sure it doesn't have any physical barriers. It is now day 22 of the search for a missing 5-year-old boy from Red Earth Cree First Nation, and one Indigenous leader says their hopes are beginning to fade. Frank Young was last seen outside his home on the afternoon of April 19th. He was also seen at a playground in the northern part of the community, which is 300 kilometers northeast of Saskatoon. Officials provided an update this morning and say so far they've searched 92 square kilometers. Search crews are exhausted and more volunteers are needed.
Continue to hope and pray that Frank will be found safe. However, as time passes, our hopes are fading.
RCMP still say there is no evidence that Young was abducted, but any tips that have been followed up on. Meanwhile, advocates are calling for an Indigenous alert system. Some First Nations leaders say separate notifications are needed to help find missing Indigenous people when their disappearance doesn't fit the criteria for an Amber Alert. Those alerts are only issued when there is information that a child has been abducted and is in grave danger. The chief of Shoal Lake Cree Nation, where Frank Young's parents live, was asked about creating a new kind of alert system. He says he's not concerned about it at this time.
Our focus is specifically for Frank and not any other. I think this alert system kind of coincide with the missing and murdered Indigenous women, but I wouldn't really go there unless it's really specific with the finding and searching for Frank.
In a statement to the CBC, Saskatchewan RCMP say that just because an Amber Alert was not issued for Young, it does not lessen in any way how seriously they treat the missing child. Some good news to share about a snowy owl who caught our attention a few months back. You may remember this picture of a snowy owl that had a head-on collision with a van in December. The majestic bird was embedded in the vehicle's grille, but shockingly was still alive. She was taken to Salthaven West Wildlife Rehabilitation Center for treatment. The owl didn't have any fractures, but did have a very serious concussion. Well, today, Salthaven posted this video of the healthy owl being released and taking flight. If you're making summer vacation plans, any road trips are going to be expensive. Gas stations in some of Canada's biggest cities are charging upwards of $2 a litre already. In Vancouver, you're looking at $2.22.9 a litre. Here in Saskatchewan, pumps are sitting around $1.78.9 a litre. Only Calgary and Edmonton are cheaper. Edmonton customers are paying $1.58.9 a litre. Maybe time to crank out your bicycle for a tune-up. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Our neighbors to the east are facing high water, washed out roads, and more rain in the forecast. The flood fight in Manitoba continues. Alana Cole spent the day in the RM of Morris, about half an hour southwest of Winnipeg, to see how people are coping.
His yard already flooded. Still today, Leo Blaze is laying more sandbags, getting ready for what comes next.
One day at a time and just keeping up, trying to salvage everything we can, and one day at a time, that's all you can do, right?
Blaze lives in the RM of Morris. He left home to stay with a friend last week. For now, they're pumping out the water trickling into his place, but with more rain in the forecast, he's getting ready in case things get worse.
You can get all upset, but it's not going to help nothing. Just do what you can.
Just minutes away, there are fields that look like lakes, and Ron Drager is watching the weather too. He's one of the owners of Country Grove Farms. They farm nearly 4,000 acres. He estimates 2/3 are underwater.
There's nothing you can do as long as the water is going up. We're going to have patience.
He says the last few years they've been seeding in the end of April. Now he thinks they'll be lucky if they're seeding towards the end of May.
Some people may change some of their cropping plans to a shorter season crop. I'm still optimistic that I'll have some land that I can put, my corn in. But as time goes on, I'm going to have to make some choices too.
He says he's fortunate to have a paved road going by his farm, but in the RM, there are people who have lost road access. Reeve Ralph Greening says roughly 100 people have left their homes. Some are using boats to check on their property.
They've chosen to boat back and forth to monitor and to keep an eye on their properties and the animals that they take care of.
He estimates roughly up to 25% of the RM has been impacted by the flood. Part of Highway 75 is closed, and he expects the closure to last about 4 weeks. Greening says more rain adds to the stress and adds to the challenges people are already facing. He says people here just want to get back to normal. Alana Cole, CBC News, Morris.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. The exclusive export event is back.
And Ethan Williams is here now with a look at your forecast. We've got flooding to the east of us, flooding to the northwest of us. And we faced that big drought last summer, and we've had that mixed bag today. Regina, we saw rain, hail, and sunshine. Mother Nature is very confused.
Yeah, no kidding. We really do live up to our motto here, Sam. If you don't like the weather, maybe just wait a few minutes and it changes. But speaking of the ever-changing weather, we now have an update on the latest drought conditions in the province. This is data as of April 30th. And all of those spring storms seem to have improved things significantly for the southeast. Many areas now just abnormally dry conditions or have had the drought label removed altogether. The western half of the province is now where the worst of those drought conditions are. But there is hope for the west. This is the drought forecast for the end of this month. And it looks like the drought won't get any worse than it is now. Some regions seeing either no change, while many will actually see drought improve. And attention is now going to be turning to Alberta, as it appears the drought has migrated that way this year. But we also got an update today on spring runoff. And for the south part of the province, runoff is now mostly complete. And it looks like flooding is no longer a concern for us. Different story, of course, in Manitoba. For the central part of the province, it looks like there is still some snow that's melting in the Porcupine Hills over near Swan River, Manitoba. And the Swan River is still rising at this point, so there could be some localized flooding in that area over the next few weeks. We'll keep an eye there. And in the north, the melt is really just beginning, and at least in the Churchill Basin, that is, and that could mean that we could see some higher levels. They had above average snowfall this year, so that will be something we keep our eye on as well. In the south, the rain is really the story, as you saw in that report from Manitoba, and we had some of it yesterday as well, a lot of it in the In the Carnduff area, over 30 millimeters. Merrifield picking up about 25. Regina, Swift Current, Weyburn generally between 10 and 15 millimeters. Keep in mind that this does not include the rain that fell today in some parts of the province, and it's still falling right now. We're looking at, we saw some showers earlier today around Regina. We had some clearing conditions, also some showers passing through Saskatoon, and now we're looking at thunderstorms in west central and southwestern Saskatchewan. This line here just east of Rosetown heading to the east. We could continue to see some storms through the evening hours tonight, but I think things will start to clear out as we go through the overnight hours through south and central. In the southeast part of the province tomorrow, we could see some rain as part of a system that's moving through, and that could bring between 5 and 15 millimeters, but sun and cloud for much of the rest of the province. And then attention turns to Thursday and Friday. We're really watching another low pressure system, which is going to bring more rain to Manitoba and a good soaking for us on Friday as well. Here's a look at the next 24 hours, and we're looking again probably about 6 or 7 millimeters in the Estevan area, maybe a little more further south and east you go, but for the rest of the province, pretty dry tomorrow. Wind gusts could get a little breezy as we go into tonight, but for tomorrow, I think winds should remain pretty steady. But as we look toward Thursday and Friday, as that system moves in, we'll start to see gusts increase, especially in the southeast. We'll go now to our 7-day forecast for Regina, and we're looking at a mix of sun and cloud tomorrow, high of 16. The system starts to move in on Thursday, so we'll see maybe 5 or 10 millimeters of rain Thursday, but then it really picks up on Friday. Our temperatures are going to cool down. We're going to see maybe between 10 and 20 millimeters, maybe further to the more to the southeast. Saturday, we still could see some remaining rain, but the wind gusts will be the worst, I think, on Saturday, and then a gradual improvement as we head into the beginning of next week. Saskatoon, actually a pretty nice day tomorrow. We're looking at a high of 20 degrees with some sunshine. We'll see clouds build in. Saskatoon will be clipped by that system as well. We'll see maybe 10, 15 millimeters of rain there, and then a gradual warm up. So it looks like, Sam, we are in store for some more rain. Not great for the farmers who are trying to get some planting done this time of year.
For those of us who have a tea time booked on Saturday, I'm wondering, who do you talk to about making that wind and rain disappear?
Yeah, I'll have to make some negotiations on that.
You can do that?
We'll see.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
A typical toy is taking over in a big way at the Edmonton Valley Zoo. It recreates some of the zoo's most majestic creatures on an enormous, awe-inspiring scale using plastic blocks. It's the creation of acclaimed American Lego artist Sean Kenny. He's been creating award-winning Lego sculptures professionally for more than 15 years. The sculptures are also acting as learning tools, sparking conversations about endangered animals. We'll be back after the break. Ukraine is enduring more destruction as Russia's war on its neighbor nears 11 weeks. But there are also stories of heroism and bravery across the embattled nation, even as enemy missiles and bullets seek to destroy and kill. Briar Stewart reports from Kiev.
Liza Chernichenko points to where 4 bullets pierced her legs and feet. She was shot 10 days ago while trying to save 2 men who were injured in an attack in the Donetsk region. The 15-year-old got behind the wheel of a car and started driving them to the hospital. As I was coming out from under the bridge, there, like chess pieces, were many landmines. After making it through that, she says the Russians started shooting.
What was going through your mind as you were driving out?
There was no fear, there was no shock, she said, just a determination to go forward. Doctors put a steel plate into her right leg, and on her left foot, she's now missing her baby toe. But she survived when so many others haven't. At least one person was killed yesterday in Odessa when missiles hit a warehouse and the shopping mall. Since the war began, the United Nations has recorded nearly 3,400 civilian deaths, but officials warn the true number is much, much higher.
The big black hole is really Mariupol, where it's been difficult for us to fully access and to get fully corroborated information. We estimate that there are thousands of deaths that have happened there, civilians who have died due to hostilities.
Mariupol resident Alina Beskrovna sheltered with her mother and cats in a basement during the first month of the war.
This is part of Grad missile that was fired right into our house.
When they fled the city 2 weeks later, she took the missile fragment with her because she wanted hard evidence of the weapons Russia is using.
But when I look at those pieces, I think of the civilians who were just murdered.
Beskrovna is in Denmark and waiting for a visa to come to Canada, but she hasn't been able to reach her father since the end of February. He also lived in Mariupol. Searching for him and for answers isn't easy in a now shattered community. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Kiev.
The Queen's Speech is a ceremony steeped in tradition in Britain when the government sets out its agenda during the opening of Parliament. But it wasn't the monarch who stepped forward to deliver it today.
My lords and members of the House of Commons, Her Majesty's government's priority is to grow and strengthen the economy.
Prince Charles's son and heir to Queen Elizabeth read out Boris Johnson's legislative agenda. Buckingham Palace says the Queen was unable to attend because of, quote, episodic mobility issues. So her crown was placed where she would have sat at the throne. The Prince of Wales occupied the adjacent seat. He used the words Her Majesty's government instead of the traditional phrase, my government, that only the Queen could have said. The last time she missed the ceremony was in 1963 when she was pregnant. And Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather.
And I think after maybe some showers and storms tonight, Sam, we will see some clearing in Regina at midnight. We'll be at 5 degrees, light winds as well. And as we head into tomorrow, we could see some cloud cover build in. We'll be at 6 degrees at 8 a.m., mix of sun and clouds. Winds will still be fairly light out of the southeast, but as we head in toward the lunch hour, it looks like those gusts will pick up a little bit closer to 40 kilometers an hour. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds, 15 degrees. And in Saskatoon, we are looking at a mix of sun and clouds at midnight, gusts around 20 kilometers an hour. We get to tomorrow morning and we'll see some clearing. We'll be at 7 degrees, very light winds, and that sunshine will stick around for us as we head to the noon hour. 15 degrees, light gusts on our way to a high of 20 degrees, Sam.
And remember, we are working on sunshine for Saturday.
Let's hope so.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And before we go, Patrick Marleau has had a legendary record-breaking career, and now he's hanging up his NHL skates.
By saying thank you, hockey.
The 42-year-old from Aneroid, Saskatchewan spent 23 years in the NHL. 21 of those were with the San Jose Sharks, with a short stint with the Toronto Maple Leafs and Pittsburgh Penguins. Marleau never won a Stanley Cup, but he helped Canada capture gold at the 2010 and 2014 Olympics. Last year, Marleau surpassed Gordie Howe's record for most games played. In the end, he played 1,779 games, just 12 more than Howe. And today, it was his message to his family that made him choke up.
To Christina and my boys, Landon, Brody, Jagger, and Caleb, I want to thank you for all the sacrifices you've made over the years and all the support you've given me. I couldn't have lived out my dream of being a professional hockey player and having a family at the same time if it wasn't for you guys. And I love you and thank you.
As for retirement plans, Marleau says he plans to focus on his family and may return to hockey off ice. Congratulations on an amazing career. And speaking of hockey, up next, a Game 5 doubleheader. Toronto is at Tampa, followed by Edmonton in LA. That's it for us tonight. For News Anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. That is where you'll find us tomorrow night. Glenn is back after hockey tonight at 11:30. Thank you for watching and have a great night.